Am I the a-hole for no longer making toys and furniture for my former sister-in-law after her new husband called them an embarrassment and me cheap for not paying for stuff? My brother died before his firstborn child was born, and because of this I've had an above-average involvement in my nephew's life. One thing I've always done is build him toys and furniture. It was a way of providing without the awkwardness of handing over cash. Also, between my late brother's cash and life insurance via work, a trust was set up for my nephew for about £500,000. He wasn't actually married to my sister-in-law. Now, via the lab at work, I've made him a lot of wooden or 3D printed toys, but also simple handmade electronic toys. My sister-in-law was always grateful for these, and my nephew, by all accounts, loves his custom toys. Fast forward 3 years and my former sister-in-law has gotten married. I was attending my nephew's 3rd birthday and I turned up the night before to assemble his present. It was a small climbing frame/swing set I had watched better carpenters than me in the lab make. The new husband was a little standoffish, but come to the day of the party, he was telling anyone who listened that I didn't pay or make the present. I had lackeys at work do it for free. This culminated in him calling all my presents an embarrassment, and that given my fancy job, I could afford to splash some cash. I confronted him with my former sister-in-law, and she basically confirmed that whilst the presents were appreciated, she honestly expected more direct support from me after my brother's death. My mother stepped in and reminded her my brother paid for this house, and they regularly take cash out of the trust, approximately £10,000 a year. We walked out without hearing any worthwhile response, but I continued to see my nephew without incident. 6 to 7 months go by and I'm visiting, only to be told that my former sister-in-law was pregnant with twins, and she was wondering if I could make some duplicates of items made for my nephew as they needed 2 sets. I scoffed, said she had balls asking me to make stuff after she was so ungrateful, and said I owe her unborn children very little. She got upset and explained her prior statements about my handmade gifts, and said she felt they were the kind of little things someone did as a favor, not what a family provides. That's why she's asking me now as a friend to do her a favor and manufacture duplicates. I said no again, and her husband shouted through that it didn't matter. They would just use the trust to provide for kids like it's supposed to. I retorted that it was for my nephew, and good luck accessing it for that, because the trust requires my signature to pay out. I wasn't even home before he was calling me to apologize, clearly unaware I held the reins to my late brother's money. The apology was insincere, and I asked to speak to my former sister-in-law where I confirmed again that I wouldn't be manufacturing her anything. I'll still be an uncle to my nephew, and be impartial when it comes to her accessing my nephew's trust, but her husband has burned a lot my goodwill with this. Am I the a-hole for not doing her a favor after all that? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. First, my condolences on the loss of your brother. Your sister-in-law is beyond entitled. She lives in a house paid for by your late brother and benefits from a trust, and then has the gall to criticize your gift to your nephew? Outrageous! Brother knew what he was doing by setting up the trust. Smart. Not the a-hole. It was largely the insurance company, I believe. The money was mostly from life insurance via work, and the circumstances of his death, car accident deemed an unlawful death, had the responsible party's insurance paying out. One of those really morbid situations where they came around and valued my brother's worth to his child down to the pound. This is actually a big part of what inspired me to make my nephew so many things. The insurance company putting a monetary value on my brother's DIY skills, and lowballing it because he was just an electrician. Thought I'd step up since the insurance screwed her over. You're an amazing uncle and brother. I wish all kids had someone to look out for them like you do for your nephew. Not the a-hole. Sorry for your loss. Your brother was so smart to give you control over the trust for your nephew. That ensures your nephew's position is protected both financially and in this new family. Sister-in-law's new husband is bad news, and she doesn't seem to have good judgment. If you didn't have oversight on things, I bet your nephew would have been robbed and neglected by these greedy people. OP, you're not the a-hole now, and you will be not the a-hole when nephew wants to use his money, but sister-in-law wants to split it among the siblings. Not the a-hole. But if you need a couple of nieces, my daughters would absolutely love handmade toys. In all seriousness though, I think handmade puts more thought and effort into your gift than just spending $50 for a piece of crap at the store. Being told repeatedly your gifts aren't welcome, and then being angry at you for not providing more of the supposed unwanted gifts, is ridiculous. And your sister-in-law's husband absolutely is being insincere. I just hope he doesn't take out his anger on your nephew, especially when the new babies are born. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to contribute to my step-family? I'm 17, living with my dad, his wife, her 2 sons, and a daughter they have together. My dad's marriage to her started out as he was cheating on my mom while she was sick. She found out about it and kicked him out, but she died before a divorce could happen, so I went to live with him then. I was 10. In the last 7 years, I have done everything to just spend as much time with my other family and not get involved, and it worked. My dad lost all my respect with what he pulled, and his wife was put forever in the nothing-to-me zone when she kicked up a crap storm when my mom's funeral rolled around, which is a story we don't need to get into. But anyway, I have a part-time job. I also get some money from grandparents on occasion, and I have savings that only they can access while I'm a minor that was saved by them. So my dad lost his job because of COVID last year, and his wife was a stay-at-home mom. Things took a turn for the worse when they found a couple of leaks and mold in the house, where a lot of whatever money they had needed to go into. Now they're okay-ish, but could do with more money. They have asked me to start pitching in with money. I said no. I said I support myself with my money, and the rest goes on me getting out as soon as I turn 18. My dad's wife told me they deserve to be treated better after 7 years, and that the least I could do is accept that they are also my family, and family helps each other. Then my dad said do it for the kids. Or at least for my half-sister, since she's still a toddler and is related to me. I asked him if he really thought I was happy about his bloodline given what he did, and given that he expected me to just suck it up so he could have what he wanted, when I was a grieving 10-year-old. He told me most kids get over petty stuff like that after a year, and that we could have been a better family. And then he ranted about how much my mom sucked for getting sick and dragging us down. He's lucky I'm pretty in control of my emotions, because he pushed buttons that are very sensitive. I told him he was the one who brought things down, and I told him I didn't get crap on someone for trying to survive, and how dare he expect that to win me over. But the fact still remains things are pretty rough right now, and there is a 3-year-old involved, as well as a 14 and 15-year-old. So let me know, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It's not your job to support the household, it's theirs. Right? Stepmom can't afford the luxury of being a stay-at-home mom at the moment. She needs to get her butt up, get a job and stop harassing Opie. Meanwhile, Dad can get a job at any fast food place to tie the family over. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Absolutely not the a-hole. It does suck that they're having such a rough circumstances right now, especially for the children involved. But you know who else had rough circumstances with the child involved? Your mother. Did your father and his wife and the kids help then? Return the favor. Give them as much help and support now that they did then. Can you stay with your grandparents? I was about to say this very thing. Could Opie move in with the grandparents? Agreed. Opie is 17. They will be out and on their own very shortly. Grandparents don't need to do any raising. Not the a-hole. I was an adult, but my sperm donor also was cheating on my mom while she was dying and she didn't have time to divorce him. I say this from the bottom of my heart. Screw your dad. Get out as soon as you can and never look back. Any person who can do what he did is really screwed. I keep a bail money account for the day of my sperm donor's funeral, so I can walk up in the middle and piss on his casket. Just check your local laws and make sure that won't land you on an offender registry. Otherwise, I support this 100%. Save the pee in a jar over the days leading up to his funeral and let it ferment a bit, and then tip that over him. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my wife's ex-in-laws during our pool party? My wife Ari was married back when we were only friends, and she and her husband Eric were trying to have a baby. They weren't successful, and one day they approached me asking if I'd be willing to be a sperm donor for them. I agreed to it after some time to think, because she was one of my closest friends and wanted to help them out. We talked about my role being the fun uncle type and being there for important stuff. She got pregnant and had my son John. She and Eric separated when John was a few months old, but he was still involved. But when he was 7 months old, Eric passed away. Ari struggled a lot as a single mom, and so I wanted to help her out more. Slowly, little by little, I got to be more involved helping take care of him. And 4 years later, I fell in love with Ari and we pursued a romantic relationship. Eric's family was still involved in John's life, and they were outraged when they found out about us. His sister in particular, who's like 35 by the way, started spreading rumors that we were having an affair when she got pregnant with John, and tricked Eric into letting me be a sperm donor to cover it up. It was pretty wild. They just saw it as Eric committing a massive betrayal to Eric's memory, starting a relationship with the biological father of their child, even though they were already going to divorce. I had to cut it off for a while. Then we got married and have another baby on the way. Last year, Eric's family wanted to come around again to see John, 7. We talked it over and agreed to it. It mattered to us that he still gets to have his grandparents around, so we hoped it would work out. Due to COVID, we only saw them a handful of times, but they were invited to our pool party. Sometime during the party, I heard some arguing and my wife went back into our house crying. I took them into the house and asked ex-mother-in-law what happened, and she looked furious. So the topic of John's school came up. Ex-mother-in-law was trying to convince Ari to send John to the same school Eric did, and they had a disagreement. This led to the topic of Eric being brought up, and how Eric keeps finding more ways to dishonor his memory. Knowing her, I'm sure it was more she said to make Ari that upset. I was so mad that I told them they needed to leave right now. They left through the front so party guests in the back wouldn't see, but they were still furious at being kicked out. And really think I was a nahal for making them leave over a disagreement like that. I'm just not happy with them at all, and neither is Ari. But still wonder if I was a nahal for my reaction. Now for the comments. Not nahal. I mean, you're asking whether you are a nahal for telling people to leave after they insult your wife and make her cry? Obviously not. Also, it's probably not good for John to be around such boorish people. Horrible family members often try to play this woe is me game. A good exercise is to ask yourself, what would you do if a random stranger walked into your home and insulted your wife? Would you let them hang around and have a burger? Time to consider cutting that toxicity out of your family's life, because it does not sound like it's getting better. Not nahal. They don't get to judge and be rude to your situation. Also, it's your home, so it's your rules. You guys gave them another shot to come back into your lives on good terms, and they blew it. You handled it appropriately though. Let them slip away from the front door so no one sees. It saves them public humiliation, which would have escalated it more. You stuck up for yourself, your children, and your wife. Family first, my man. And you've put them ahead over everything like a great father and husband. The family seems to be abusive, manipulative, and mind-numbing. Cut them out now before they become a larger headache. We're talking about it. Aside from their issues with us, they really are great with John. But at the same time, we don't want them filling his head with anything. Not nahal. Because of course you, your wife, and your son deserve to be respected, especially in your own home. Legally take the steps to be identified as John's father. Speak to a good family lawyer before Rex's in-laws go take you to court on the basis of grandparents' rights. Better to be safe than sorry, and to have all the information you need about what to do before it gets to that point. Yes, we went through the proper channels for me to become his legal father. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my wife's siblings to grow up during my divorce with their sister? Me, male 30, and my wife, female 34, are getting a divorce. Luckily, it's not malicious and toxic. We have simply grown apart and think our daughter will be happier growing up with 2 individually happy parents versus 2 resentful parents under the same roof. It's still hard though. It's sad and it's stressful for both of us. My wife went to stay with her dad, and her 2 siblings visited. Her sister's very negative and very angry. She always starts some kind of argument. Her brother is the opposite, a kind soul, very funny and gentle man. Then she calls me in tears and says they're all being horrible. Apparently the first thing they did was try and convince her that we were making a mistake, and clearly hadn't thought this through. When my wife grew defensive, her sister said she's clearly not in a good state of mind, duh, and that she should leave because she was being toxic. The brother said nothing, and neither did her dad. They just let it happen, and now they're all being weird and aloof with her, during a time which needs them most, and drove 6 hours to see them, and instead she's driving back in tears. I called her sister and let rip. I said, how is it possible that she goes to see you because of the divorce we're getting, and yet she's calling me for comfort because you're being nasty? I was angry. Her sister said this has nothing to do with me. Then her brother called me, and I said, how can you be a part in making her feel so awful after all she's done for you all? I told him it's pathetic, and I told them both that they need to grow up and be there for their sister when she needs them, because she's always there for them, no questions asked. My wife isn't angry at me, but she's upset at the situation, and her dad sends me a seething text telling me to leave his kids alone. I feel like an a-hole, but I also feel that they were being total a-holes. Maybe everyone sucks here. I would just appreciate an outsider's perspective. Not an a-hole. You're probably not the best source for that message, but goddamn if you weren't 100% right. Lol, when the guy divorcing your sister is more considerate of her feelings than you. OP, I commend you for how you well stood up for your soon-to-be ex. I wish more divorces were this amicable. Not an a-hole. It seems very distasteful for them to negatively criticize their soon-to-be ex instead of comforting her during this time. All in all, it seems like you still really care about each other due to you standing up for her in this situation, and her reaching out to you for comfort. I would be sure you're actually ready for the divorce. We are very good friends, but that's all at this point. It's platonic, not romantic. We care for each other and always will. Not an a-hole. It's sad that you had to have her back because her own family was being hurtful. I'm thankful it isn't a resentful, toxic divorce, because she clearly doesn't have much support on their end. Not an a-hole, although I'm not sure it was a good idea. I doubt it will make things better for her. They're more interested in enabling her sister's behavior than caring for your ex-wife, and she will be the one who has to deal with them in person. Does she have any friends she could stay with? Could you help her move to a more supportive atmosphere?